And welcome back to Listen Up Maryland, presented by Dempsey's Grill and Sportsland, alongside Ryan Brenner, Phil Becerra, and Ryan, another new face on the screen. And we call him Double B, but his first name is really Brian. Brian, a good friend of mine, and I can't thank you enough for coming on with us today for Listen Up to recap the 2021 Orioles season.
Pleasure to be here. Happy to be here.
I know Ryan, he was been looking forward to a while too. So Ryan, you finally get to say hi to Double B. You finally get to see who it is.
Yeah, I appreciate him coming on. Yeah.
All that good talk.
No
I always talk. Yep. Okay. So without wasting any more time, Double B, we're going to spend, it was fine with you, maybe about a half an hour, 45 minutes, just again, recapping the season. And I know, let me just start out by saying this very quickly. I know I told Ryan, if there's, and everybody watching this, if there's anybody to bring on as far as Orioles talk, you're at the top of my list. I mean, this guy knows his stuff, and I'm so honored to bring you on today, and I can't wait. It's going to be fun. So Double B and Ryan, just start off again with what happened. There is one team left. Start off right with actually right now is what's occurring now. There's one team left in the postseason out of our division. That's the Boston Red Sox. What is just start off, Double B. What's the main issue right now with these Orioles on of why they're in this hole? What I mean is, it seems like you just woke up and all of a sudden they find themselves in the basement of the division. We saw it coming when everyone started leaving. Tell me what you think about, were they that close at actually competing for a World Series and having a couple more winning seasons after that loss in the wild card in Toronto in 2018? I know a lot of Orioles fans, man, they were very disappointed at what happened as far as the players being let go. So what was your take on that? Just the whole core group, that winning group ball club we had, and they're gone.
Yeah, I think looking back from the years 2012 to 2016, with Buck Showalter getting the team on the right track after he got hired in 2010, we had that core group of players. You had Chris Davis at his prime, Manny Machado coming up. You had pretty decent starting pitching. And of course, you had Zach Britton, Darren O'Day, and Brad Brock in the bullpen to close everything down. And when you see the 2014 team that got to the ALCS and got swept by the Royals, which was really a surprise to me because each game was so close to 2-1, 3-2 scores. That year, I think that was their year, and I think Buck Showalter thought 2014 was going to be their year. 2015 comes around. I think they went 81 and 81. They've leveled off, but then they got 89 wins in 2016. And of course, the wild card game with Buck Showalter leaving Zach Britton in the bullpen in the ninth and the 10th inning, that really cost a lot when they brought Jimenez in. And then they wanted to come back in 17 for one more chance. And if I remember correctly, there were quite a few injuries that year, and they ended up only winning, I think, 73 games.
Yeah.
And they had to decide then to basically throw the towel in on competing again. The big contract to Chris Davis, that hamstrung their ability to go out and maybe sign other free agent players. And when 2018 comes around, I think that was Bucks last year when they lost 117 games or whatever it was. And they had to trade everybody away. Yeah. And of course, every fan, I've got jerseys of Adam Jones and Manny Machado, and it was hard to see him go.
Yeah.
But the end of the day was their window had closed.
Yeah, it did. And it just seemed like it was kind of, I don't know, the word's ironic, but it was weird, right? Because we saw Ubaldo Jimenez come in, although he had his struggles in Baltimore. Ryan knows all about that. I'll let Ryan talk about that. Get a little bit heated. We want to get Ryan heated early in this video. But yeah, I mean, but as you saw, Brian, he was coming. I know I attended first time ever. I went to Nationals Park in 2018, right before they had traveled to the wild card game in Toronto. But it was kind of weird, right? Because Ubaldo Jimenez leading up to everything that happened after 2018, and then the team went down the slide again. Ubaldo Jimenez was starting to heat up there, working out of the bullpen, if you can remember that. But then all of a sudden, we get to the game in Toronto where Zach Britton never pitched, right? And it just seems weird because all it took was one pitch, and Ubaldo and the rest of the franchise was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did start heating up, and we thought there was a glimmer of hope with Ubaldo for a little bit. And it's always a question we're going to ask if, obviously, I think in hindsight, it would have been better to bring Zach Britton on. But it's the pressure of the moment for Ubaldo there. I mean, it's tough to come into an environment, especially in an elimination playoff game. You only get one chance. And when you're the away team, like you said, it only takes one pitch. and one hit, the ball out of the ballpark. And really, that was the end of the Orioles run there. And I agree with Brian. My list of players when they all left: Adam Jones, Manny Machado, Jonathan Scope, Kevin Gausman, Zach Britton, Brad Brock. There's just so many guys that left, and those were the core key players on this team. They just had so much talent. And the Orioles, it just seemed like they all left at once. And when all those guys left, the Orioles just never really filled the void of all those players leaving.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
right.
basically, with having a full rebuild in baseball takes at least 5 years. And if you
Yeah.
look at, the Houston Astros, notwithstanding their cheating scandal and all of that stuff, they really bottomed out in 2011, 2012, 2013. I think they had 100 losses every year.
Yeah.
But they drafted high, just like the Orioles are now drafting high for like the fourth straight year. And if we can build on something, because we have Mike Elias who came from the Astros, you're going to see that building up again. And that's what we have the best farm system in baseball now, based on in Baseball America.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a main reason I told you before this video, before we started this episode, that main reason why, Ryan, I told Double B that I wanted to get him on because, again, his knowledge is, I was shocked when I started knowing Double B, and I was very honored to actually start. Anybody that knows their sports, I'm like, man, they're my friend right away, right? So
the only sport I really don't know that well is basketball, but I have some knowledge of it. I used to watch NBA a lot when I was growing up.
Right.
When Jordan was playing in his prime, so I don't know much about it now, but I have some history of it.
And the history this man knows about baseball in itself. It's amazing, Ryan. So again, well, Ryan, again, that's the main reason why I bring Double B on, because of the Orioles minor league system. We're going to dive into that in just a second. Double B, I want to focus on Brandon Hyde for a second, because as a manager, he was a manager with the Florida Marlins. I did not realize that right away when he came over to the Baltimore Orioles.
He had like half a year. I can't remember what.
2011, I think it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came over in 2019. So this was his third year as manager with the Orioles. I know you was telling me that we expect him back next year. Again, it's too early to really detail in managers on the hot seats. I don't know. I'll get your opinion, but I think it's safe to say, as young as we are and rebuilding in the process that we are right now, I don't know why any fans would ever even want to discuss the topic of managers on the hot seat at this time.
Yeah, I agree with that, because Brandon was brought in simply for the fact was he's going to be a guy who works with young players and develops them into, major league players.
Right.
And unless a manager of the caliber of, a Tony La Russa, a couple other guys don't come to mind right off the top of my head, but a marquee manager coming available, the Orioles are not going to be getting rid of Brandon Hyde. Okay. He's going to stick around at least for one more year. And if the Orioles show improvement, because I think we won only 54 games this year, if they can win, 65 to 70 next year, that shows that things are getting better.
Right.
The Orioles are not going to go from 54 wins to 95 wins in one season, barring a major miraculous situation happening, a Cinderella team like that.
So he's telling you, Ryan, don't get your hopes up then, Ryan.
He's going to be around.
No.
You never know what can happen in sports. The Orioles in 1980, here's a history lesson. In 88, they lost 107 games. In 89, they were one game away from making the playoffs. They had the why not Orioles of 89. So things can happen, and that was a young team then. And that built up into the 90s when they had a strong foundation. But Brandon's going to be around. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere.
Yeah. No, that answers our question, Ryan, because remember we had that discussion, Ryan, earlier this year about Brandon Hyde and the job that he's doing. I think he's doing a pretty good job. I mean, what can you, when you have all young players on the squad, man, and when they're already suffering as far as starting pitching, there were some bright spots again, but especially in that bullpen, man. I mean, talk about the bullpen, Brian. I mean, and Ryan and I had that discussion. When you only have certain pieces to work with, I think it's hard you can't really judge a manager in that position.
No, when you have journeyman players like Cesar Valdez and there's a couple other guys that don't come to mind right away, but you look at the stars of the bullpen, Cole Sulzer, when he pitched, he had a low, it was either a low 3 or high 2 ERA.
Yeah, 2.7. Yeah,
2.7.
When Tanner Scott was on, he was unhittable. He just has to be able to control his slider and fastball. Right. And as a lefty, he's going to be swinging in hard to lefties. He's going to start hitting a lot of them if he doesn't control his fastball. And then Dylan Tate, he's another one. he's on his command, he's going to be very hard to hit. So if the pitching coaches and the staff can develop those guys even more, and then you also forget about Hunter Harvey. He was injured most of the year. He can throw 100 miles an hour when he's healthy.
Yeah.
He could be that closer that really comes in and shuts the game down for you. But you got to be able to get to those guys with a lead and then hold that lead. Because look how many Orioles had a lead this year, and then they weren't able to hold it. And winning teams hold those leads, and 95% of the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think I do agree with that. The Orioles have a lot of pitchers, a lot of prospects in the bullpen and starting pitchers. Obviously, John Means was, I think, the brightest spot or one of the brightest spots on this roster. He had that no hitter. Could have easily been a perfect game. It was so close to getting that perfect
the wild
game.
Pitch, the ridiculous wild pitch rule cost him a perfect game.
Yeah. I mean,
I remember. I'm glad Ryan brought that up. Yeah, because I talk about bright spots in a bad losing season. That was really that was really one of them, man. And
there was no one under the age of I think 50 who's ever saw an Orioles no hitter. I never saw one before because the last one officially was in I think 1991.
Jim Palmer.
Palmer had the one where it was just him, the starter. That was 1969.
Okay, yeah.
So Means was the first guy since Jim Palmer to have just a starting pitcher no hitter. I think the Orioles had a combined no hitter in 1991 with the bullpen. Okay. But that was pretty amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah,
it was. Go into a little bit of detail, Double B, about. I want to get your take. So, I don't know. I saw an article here where I think that it was the Orioles had their decision making to do with Trey Mancini. We know how great he is. He overcame cancer at one point in his career not too long ago. Again, drew in a lot of national attention and with the media, national media surrounding that. But Double B, when it gets to the point, again, I don't want to say he's too old, but when you're rebuilding like this, is it safe to say that maybe we won't see him much longer in Baltimore again, because you have Cedric Mullins, great. I'm not going to call him a utility man now. He's an everyday starter for your ball club. Right now, I mean, the top two for me, Cedric Mullins, Trey Mancini, the face of this ball team. But again, I'm seeing some stuff where they're not too sure if Trey Mancini is going to be held on too much longer in Baltimore.
I would say Mancini's future looks mostly as a designated hitter, because what you have is I got the Ryan Mountcastle jersey on, and he can play first base pretty well. He's not that great in the outfield, and of course he can DH. And I think Mancini's role is going to be, if he can stay healthy, keep his strength up through all of the medical problems that he's had. Yeah. He's looking towards a DH type, every fifth or sixth day play the field. I think from an Orioles public relations standpoint, they have to keep him around at least 3 or 4 more seasons. Okay. And if he wants to retire, then that's going to be up to him. But you can't let the face of your franchise that everyone has come to love just go away. I think he wants to stay for his own sake. He just got married, I think, or is going to be getting married to Sarah Perlman of Mazin.
Yeah. And
she's going to be around, and I think they want to stay in Baltimore.
Yeah, congratulations to them. I was surprised too when I saw that, because I remember her, but I think she actually moved on now though, because I hear her sometimes on ESPN, the local.
I think she got another job
yeah. So yeah, shout out to them and congratulations to them. That's exciting. But yeah, I saw Double B where he hit 21 home runs this year. Yeah. So again, that's one of your top hitting. And then he appeared in his first ever home run derby.
Home run derby. Yeah.
Probably wore him out the rest of the season. All those swings he took.
That's right, because he almost won it, Ryan, didn't he?
Yeah. He must have swung 150 times in that home run derby.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah, that was so fun to watch. Nobody expected him to make it far at all.
If he doesn't win comeback player of the year, that's just going to be a shame. I mean,
we're expecting it. Let's hope. Yeah. So that's Trey Mancini and then Cedric Mullins. Double B, talk a little bit about. I'm a huge fan of Austin Hayes. And again, Ryan Mountcastle. Them two paired together, man. I mean, that's if they start to heat up. And of course, we always talk about the starting pitchers, and we'll get into pitching in just a second when we go over the minor leagues. But man, how big is that? I mean, especially for Mountcastle to break out the second half of the season like he did.
Yeah, for him, he started off really slow, and they call it the sophomore slump. Your second season in the major leagues. You really didn't have a full first season. You only had like 35 games in the shortened year.
Yeah.
And he was down in the dumps, and I think he just went back to basics and started looking at his batting stance and trying to stay behind the baseball, driving the ball to right field when he has to. And it really showed he's got that power to all fields. And as I said, he plays a pretty serviceable first base. And as for Austin Hayes, I don't think there's any more accurate arm in left field in the American League, because you're going to be seeing guys getting thrown out the plate a lot by Austin Hayes.
Yeah.
Because he just comes into the ball and charges it, and he plays a really good left field in the air. He'll catch balls that are on the fly. And you look at the Orioles outfield, you look at Austin Hayes in left, Cedric Mullins in center, and we forget about Anthony Santander. When he's healthy, he's got a very accurate arm. And when he can run with his ankle being repaired and injured up, he's going to be also out there and right. And you can platoon guys. That's what Earl Weaver used to do. He used to put, if you're going to face a left-handed pitcher, you put a right-handed batter in the outfield and you flip them around each time. So you could have two players acting as one. So you could have Mancini in right with Santander, or you could have Hayes in left with, you could flip all these guys around.
Yeah.
You can have all these different positions.
And I know that was a big concern. Ryan, I'll let you speak on my behalf on this. Because Orioles fans, diehard Orioles fans, Brian, they were always they're accustomed to seeing, obviously, the great Adam Jones in center field. I'm just talking, as far as my generation, the great Adam Jones in center field. And then you always had Nick Markakis, right field. He came up in the minors, played with the Frederick Keys for a while. And then that left field position was kind of occupied, especially when Buck Showalter started there. They were in and out, some on left field. It started off with, it was Felix PA there for a while. And then you had, was it Nolan Reimold, I think?
Reimold was there, another highly touted prospect, But
the reason why I say about Ryan, speaking on my behalf about this, because I know Ryan, that was a big concern on Ryan's list. Not just the pitching. Again, we'll get into that, but Ryan was concerned, he's like, oh my gosh, Phil, with Adam Jones leaving, like what happens now to the whole outfield? Because we all know the captain of the outfield is center field. So but Ryan, it's according to Double B, it looks pretty bright with these three you got lined up in the outfield.
Yeah, it does for sure. And I love watching Adam Jones play. He was my favorite player. I think he was your favorite player as well. He was so fun to watch. He just brought so much energy to that team, just on and off the field, really. But yeah, Mountcastle had a spectacular year for this team. He batted .255, 33 home runs, 89 RBIs, both of which led the team. He's only 24 years of age too, so he just is, his ceiling's so high. He has so much room to grow. And Santander too, that's a really good point. He got injured, so he's a really good baseball player too. And of course Mullins, I think he was the best player on this team for the 2021 season. He just had an amazing year. So and stolen bases too. I believe he had like 30 stolen bases. That's something that gets overlooked a lot of the time too. So that speed out in center field, you can't teach that. So I think this Orioles outfield is going to be pretty good for the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. You look at the whole defense as a whole. I think the Orioles they were pretty middle of the pack on errors. The fielding percentage was, I think, around 99 or 95, 96%, excuse me, and that led or that kept them in the middle of the pack in the American League. But defense for them was actually pretty decent this year, and it's only going to get better, I think, when you bring an Adley Rutschman up behind the plate, because you're not going to hopefully not see as many pass balls that we saw from Pedro Severino.
Yeah,
but Pedro Severino is a pretty good hitting catcher, but the defense is still a little suspect.
Yeah, you said the name Adley Rutschman. I had brought a smile to my face right away. Ryan, it's funny because Ryan and I only attended one game this year together. It was back in July when the White Sox were in town. But I'm sure Ryan, I know Ryan's excited for Rutschman to come up, but I'm like, he's probably just thinking, Phil, can you please shut up? Because how many times, Ryan, have you heard the name Adley Rutschman?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he had a chance to come up this past season, but I guess there was really no point because of how bad the Orioles were. He wasn't going to just come in and, make them win a ton of games for a playoff push or something like that. But I definitely expect him to come up this season for sure.
Yes. And Brian, that takes me into our next topic. I'll go ahead since we're on it now. Adley Rutschman, the first overall pick out of Oregon, round one. Everybody, not only in Baltimore, everybody's familiar with it, I'm sure, across the nation already. He had 452 at-bats this year, Brian. He had 23 home runs, 75 ribbies, 3 stolen bases. He had a batting average of 285. I just want to get your take, Double B. I couldn't wait to talk to you about Rutschman. Me being a diehard baseball fan, I kind of felt guilty because I'll tell you this, Brian, when they drafted Adley Rutschman, I was thinking to myself, okay, we have the first pick overall, round 1, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Orioles definitely need pitching. They're going to go with pitching, right? They have to. They're going to pick the number 1 overall pitcher and the best pitcher in this draft. I felt guilty, Brian, because, again, you brought up Mike Elias. I don't know if it was his thinking or a process or who it was, but it takes me into the question for you. They drafted a catcher, and I never thought to myself, well, obviously, the catcher always needs to have that the relationship with the pitchers, with the signs and everything that they call. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't wait to ask Double B this. I'm like, do you really think one of these days, of course, down the road, a dream come true for all of us, that this could be the man in the World Series hugging whoever's on the mound? We don't know what pitcher it's going to be, hugging him in that very last out number 27.
I think so, because if you look at the pitching, it's hard to draft a pitcher and bring them all the way up through the system and they're going to be successful. It's a very low percentage if you look at the history of it.
Yeah.
The Orioles we had so many draft picks from the 2000s through the early 2010s that were pitchers, and they just went nowhere.
Yeah.
And you go further back, you hear Ben McDonald on TV. He was the number 1 pick in 1989 because he always had that bad season in '88. He was a pretty good starting pitcher, but he never turned out to be the ace everybody wanted. Of course, we had Mike Mussina back then too.
Yeah.
But with Adley Rutschman, you're going to have a guy who's going to catch every pitcher basically on the team, and he's going to develop a relationship with all of those guys. He's going to know their ins and outs, their ups and downs, and he's going to be able to focus on their strengths. And that's what people don't think about with pitching. They always try all these different things. Focus on what your strength is. Could be the fastball, could be the curveball, could be the slider, but focus on something that you is going to get a batter out. And when you do, and Adley's going to be back there as the quarterback of the pitching staff. He's going to be putting the signs down, and those pitchers are going to be throwing what he wants to throw.
That's right, Ryan. I told you, Ryan, it's the quarterback of the field, man. Yeah, it's right. That's why I told Brian I felt so guilty when they drafted him, because I definitely wasn't thinking catcher, but they did. They went catcher number 1 overall, and I think that was very important, Brian. I think that was, whether that was up to Mike Elias or not, which I'm assuming it is, I think that was a very smart move, and that, again, just build the team not only around him. Of course, it takes more than one guy, but I think it all starts with him, and that's why I can't be more excited. And you even said it. I think you predicted next year that we may see him, because it seems like he went up through the minors very quickly.
And if you look at Mike Elias's drafting philosophy, he hasn't. If you look at the last 2 seasons of drafts, he doesn't pick pitchers. It's all the infielders or outfielders or the catching position. So I think his goal is, let's draft these position players, develop them, and then once the success starts to come around, you can sign those free agent pitchers that you need to get.
Yeah, that'll help you win.
We might not sign a Max Scherzer type pitcher with the money and all that. Who knows what happens with the baseball union contracts and the salary. If there's ever a salary cap, I'm all for it, because the Orioles aren't able to compete with the big bruisers of the American League.
No, and that's something that, I mean, while we're on that topic of catchers and then compete, I mean, do you see that's, is it something to be concerned about when you have the Red Sox, the Yankees, even Toronto? I mean, Toronto now, and then the Rays. I mean, it just seems like you can't catch a break, right?
Well, the Rays are the template.
All 4 of them, Brian, are highly competitive baseball teams.
But the Rays are the team that develops their players.
Yeah.
Their payroll is very low. They, sadly, the Rays might not even be around in the next 5 years. They might move somewhere. Right. But they're the template, because you look at all the Rays players, they're like, where do these guys come from? Like, who are these guys? But they're always in a game and they're always competitive, and their pitching staff is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Toronto Blue Jays have so many young players too. Obviously, Guerrero, he's hitting the heck out of the ball for the Blue Jays, and but the Rays, like you said, they developed so many of their guys. we don't know if you don't watch the Rays at all. We don't know many of the players on their team. So that's about the only team that I don't have a problem with winning in the
Yeah.
division, while the Orioles are bad because the Rays developed all their players. They didn't go out and spend a ton of money on all these superstars. So they did it the way I can respect.
Yep. Agreed.
I don't know, Brian. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know. It seems like the Orioles are starting to stack up a little bit on their catchers behind the plate. Now we talk about Rutschman. I don't know when that situation arises. I mean, if you bring Rutschman up, right? I mean, do you want him to work under a more of a veteran catcher to start his career, or do you think he'll have what it takes? I mean, I wouldn't argue he might have what it takes to go right away. I'm not expecting a whole workload out of him every single week, but I just don't know whether to expect maybe Pedro Severino to move forward with another ball team, because then you have Austin Wins. So, I mean, it's kind of starting to get crowded behind the plate.
I think with Rutschman, you're going to see him. He's going to get his fair share of starts to see if he can handle the workload.
Okay.
And then if there's any fallback or drop off and things, they'll back him off. But as far as I know, Severino is going to be on the team next year unless there's a trade at all. But I'd imagine there's going to be so many people wanting to work near Rutschman to see how he operates. And of course, other players are going to pick up things from him, and he can pick up things from others. Okay. But I think you'll see him start off if he doesn't make the team out of spring training by early May or June, you're going to see him starting a fair share of games if he's able to play.
When these going on to pitching, Ryan, unless you have anything else for Brian, going on to pitching, I know Ryan wanted to bring his name up too. I actually personally, I don't know if Brian, I don't know if I told you or not. I think I mentioned it to you before. My grandparents go to church with this young man's parents, and that would be Bruce Zimmerman. So I'm definitely trying to get in contact with him and bring him on sometime. I just want to point him out because I feel like that when this guy is healthy, man, I feel like not only, I don't know, you have to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he worked out of the bullpen just a little bit this year or not, but I knew he was off during the second half of the year. He was injured. Yeah. But Brian, just talk about how big Zimmerman is when he's healthy. I mean, he could give a boost to that starting rotation.
I got to see him live and in person. I went down to a game with some friends from work, and I think it was May of this year. And he's not going to overpower with his fastball, but he's got a really good curveball. And he's got a windup that kind of reminds me of a left-handed Greg Maddux, if you ever see his windup. Just kind of slow and methodical, but he kind of deceives you a little bit. Right. So when he throws that fastball, it might not be 100 miles an hour, but it looks to be 100 when he throws that slow curveball. Right. And if he can just, I think his other pitch would be that changeup. And if he can master that changeup, he's going to be a very decent pitcher for the Orioles.
Yeah, he's a guy that we talked about a lot in the season preview, and we had high hopes for Bruce Zimmerman. He didn't have quite a good a year as we kind of expected. Like you did mention, he got hurt in the second half of the season, but he did start 13 games. He finished 4-5, and he had an ERA of just over 5, so which is pretty good comparing to all the other starting pitchers and all the pitchers in general for the Orioles. So I think he'll have some pretty good years to come if he continues to develop under the Orioles.
To stay healthy. Yeah. I mean, that's a guy, again, he's only 26, Brian. So again, I think that as long as he stays healthy, I think that's the key. Definitely a guy that the Orioles should keep around, in my opinion.
I agree completely.
Moving on to the top, I just saw he was a top prospect and all, and you mentioned, and this should be, I was like, if we aren't by now ranked number 1 in the farm system out of all teams, then something might be wrong, Ryan, because I don't know how many times where we've had the top 5 pick double B in these past a couple drafts. So we've been drafting pretty high lately. So we are ranked number 1 in the farm system. Grayson Rodriguez. I know you have Adley Rutschman at 1, but then Grayson Rodriguez double B. I don't know. He pitched. What is he? He's a righty, and I've been hearing a lot of different rumors that he's been looking very sharp in the minors as well.
Yeah, he's on the way as well. You're not going to be seeing too much more time of him in the minor leagues. He just came upon the minor leagues and just demolished everybody from single A all the way up. I think he just got promoted to AAA, and he is, I believe he's number 2 in the country now behind Rutschman in terms of prospects. Yeah, and he's not going to be far behind Adley Rutschman coming in the major leagues. Power fastball, power curveball, power slider, and I believe a changeup too. And he's one of those guys, like, you don't want to protect him too much with the minor leagues because you eventually get to the point where he's just waiting to come up to the majors. and you don't want him to be gun shy about it. You want to throw him on the pitcher's mound and see what he can do. And if there has to be things that go from there, that'll be what happens.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And again, Brian Rodriguez. So because I was looking here, he has a 4-pitch mix, continues to get sharper as he progresses. He's now up to 99 miles per hour with his fastball, averaging around 95 over the summer. So I don't know. I was wondering about this too. When you talk about the down history, if you will, the poor history with the Orioles as far as pitching. Of course, he had some of them bright spots where we made the ALCS in 14 and whatnot, but overall, it's just not been too good. I think we all can agree on that. When you have high-powered hitters in the American League East, and not only in this division, just overall in the whole league, when I say this, because you see how many home runs are being hit nowadays, man. It seems like it's either a strikeout or a home run. But is it more or less? I'm starting to see with these Orioles pitchers when it is home runs. I mean, the ball is just right down the middle of the plate. I'm not saying, Brian, that the fastball doesn't come in handy when you need it. But does it just come down to all about locating your pitches?
Yeah, I think so. You look at one of the greatest pitching coaches for the Atlanta Braves was Leo Mazzoni.
Yeah.
And he actually was an Orioles pitching coach for 2 years in 2005 and 6.
Oh.
And his success was every one of his pitchers could locate the fastball down and away. Because if you can do that, the batter is not going to be looking down the middle. He's looking down and away. And then you can come up and in or down and in on him.
Yeah.
So most of these pitchers are, like you say, it's either a home run or a strikeout. Right. And that's the way the hitting is today. They're not trying to hit the ball the other way. They're not trying to hit it in the air to the whatever opposite field they want to go to. Yeah. They're trying to hit a home run. Right. And the pitcher has to look at their swings and say, wow, this guy's really swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
How can I focus on his weakness, which might be down and in? You look at a guy like Mookie Betts for the Dodgers. He loves the ball down and in. He can't hit the ball up and away.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to focus on their weakness.
Okay.
And if the pitching staff and the pitching coaches can say, look, we need to focus on these couple areas, you're going to see an improvement, I think.
Yeah, and that's something too. Location's so important for all pitchers, and just like you mentioned, Mookie Betts in this postseason. What I've seen from this postseason, I think if pitchers know the scouting report, all the pitching coaches can communicate that with all the pitchers. The scouting report on all these batters, and their strengths, their weaknesses, and I think a lot of times that's what a baseball game comes down to. If the starting pitchers, your closers that come in, if they're on and they pitch to where their location and away from the strengths of the hitters, like Jose Altuve, he likes it up and in. And when he's on, he's not gonna miss. It's out of the ballpark. So
he hammered one last night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Who was that, Ryan?
Jose Altuve.
Oh, Altuve. Yeah. I saw when he come back last night.
Batters' strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And now with they have the little cards I see in their pocket or in their hat. They can say, well, this guy is not good down and away. So focus on that, I think.
I mean, I'm looking at the list now, Brian, and I mean, how about Heston catcher stat? I remember discussing him with you when he got drafted. He has a projected ETA of 2023, so maybe a couple more years to another outfielder. We told about outfield already being set for the Orioles, possibly, and then you could have. So it looks like to me, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's looking even brighter for us because not only we have the prospect or the actual starters here right now on the roster, as long as they don't go anywhere, as long as they get the experience coming more and more each year, but then it looks like you also have the depth behind them because as the prospects show up, you're still going to have your starters there, right? But then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, something that the Orioles may never had. They're looking at players on the bench ready to come in and start in the game.
Yeah, if the Orioles get to the point of having a surplus of prospects, that even bodes to better chances for the trades to get the players that'll take you over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're there in late July of maybe next year or the following year with the prospect surplus, all these other teams are going to be looking at them and saying, well, what can we give you? Well, we want we want one of your top pitchers. We need this spot on our team where you can make that trade.
Right.
And that's what puts you over the top.
Yeah.
That's what the O's tried to do in 2014. I'm sure you know the name Eduardo Rodriguez for the Red
Yeah.
Sox.
Mm-hmm.
He was a top Orioles pitching prospect, and we traded him to the Red Sox for Andrew Miller, one of the best relievers at the time. And it was a good trade to make because the Orioles were trying to win a World Series and the Red Sox were in last place.
Right.
But the Red Sox got a great pitcher, and we got a good reliever for the rest of the year, but it just didn't work out in the playoffs. So those things can happen in the future.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, because Ryan and I had that discussion, I was probably a fool predicting this, but on our season preview back in the spring, Brian, I predicted the Orioles to get, what did I predict, Ryan? It was like 99 losses, I think.
Yeah,
So,
you didn't have them triple-digit losses.
You weren't off by much.
I did it because Brian, I was thinking to myself, okay, how much more worse can it get? And Brian, I was looking like, okay, as long as we could stay away from less than 100 losses, it'll be fine. But we still can't get there yet.
I can tell you the worst would be 121 losses. That'd be the all-time record.
I was getting ready to say, take us back to, you was talking about that you wanted to go dive into really quickly. The 1980s and 90s around your time, what happened?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, Camden Yards just got built in '92, and
Yeah.
the Orioles had, let me think of some of the players. Of course, you had Cal Ripken, you had Brady Anderson, Mike Devereaux, Mike Messina on the mound, Ben McDonald. Boy, the '90s for the Orioles was very exciting because every night was a sellout at the ballpark.
Yeah.
Made the playoffs in '96 with the first year of the wild card, or sorry, the second year. Lost to the Yankees. But then the '97 team was the one that they won 98 games. They were in first place every day of the season. They rolled through the Seattle Mariners, and then they ran into the Cleveland Indians. Mike Messina almost had a perfect game in, I think, game 5. They lost 1-0, and then they lost the series the next night. But then everything fell apart from '98 to 2011. That's was the 14 straight losing seasons.
Yeah.
And Buck Showalter comes along. So I had a lot of high hopes in my youth for the Orioles, and I've got my hat here. It's the '83 World Series.
There it is, Rod.
I was 1 year old. 1 year old.
1 year old. What do you last saw?
I don't even remember it.
No.
That's the last time they were there. But
at least you could say you were on this earth. Ryan and I weren't even.
Yeah. Of course, my dad has even better memories. He was growing up in the '60s and '70s when they were winning pennants and World Series. The Orioles were the best team in baseball for 15 years.
Yeah, the memories of Earl Weaver. Yeah, the memories of Earl Weaver. And
Earl Weaver.
Earl Weaver,
Jim
the great
Palmer
Earl
and
Weaver.
Brooke Robinson, Frank Robinson. You had Boog Powell still making sandwiches on Utah Street.
Yeah.
You have
Boog's Barbecue. Yeah,
he's still there, and those teams were just some of the best ever. We want to get that again one day, hopefully.
Yep. And I tell you what, Double B. It's kind of because again, you look at the Orioles' history, and it made me disappointed because we do have a rich history. Considering some of the other ball clubs have not even won a World Series, So it really made me disappointed to hear the fact that when we started going down the slide again I know some article, maybe some rumors were out considering the Angelos family possibly just moving the whole team out. And I'm like, and Double B sitting back, he's like, Phil, don't worry, it's never going to happen. All the statues, all the history there, they're never going to move that stuff.
No, and the stadium issue is still there. They have to get another long-term lease. They've been there 30 years. And the Angelos family, to their credit, because Peter is 91 years old, he's not running the team anymore. His sons are. They have said as long as Fort McHenry is guarding Baltimore Harbor, the Orioles are going to be in Baltimore. That's what they said.
Right.
And I think the Maryland Stadium Authority, who owns the ballpark, and I believe they own M&T Stadium as well.
Yeah,
they want to keep the team there. They just got to come up with the money. The money is going to be the issue. And people are gun shy because the Colts left in '84, but that was a whole different circumstance. That there was no stadium for them to move into. There was no. The owner was wanting to leave. The Orioles are going to be in Baltimore, as far as I'm concerned.
There you go, and it's such a beautiful ballpark too. Yeah. I mean, it's such a beautiful.
No, don't worry.
Ballpark.
I think there would be legislation from the governor and the General Assembly to keep them in Baltimore if they were ever an attempt to move them.
Yeah, and Ryan is right. I mean, consider the warehouse and everything. They call it one of the most beautiful ballparks in the league. That's what they say
for everything.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm not being biased because I'm sitting here with the Orioles hat on or anything, but that's what they say. So I'm just going by what they say,
All the ballparks built after Camden Yards were basically based off of that.
Yeah.
Basically the architecture, and you look at Seattle, you look at Houston, all the new Pittsburgh's another good one. I've never been to the PNC Park, but I've been told it's wonderful. They've all been based off of Camden Yards
Yeah.
because it changed the entire basis of baseball, because everyone was wanting to get away from you look at the Sky Dome in Toronto and other places, just very boring. And Camden Yards reinvented the wheel basically for baseball.
Yeah.
With the stadium.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, again, recapping this past year, everything we expected. Again, Ryan and I had them finishing in last place. Any chance that will be that you see them maybe finishing, I don't know, not in the basement, whether that's in the next 2-3 years or maybe even longer?
I think next year is another last place season, but as I said, if it's last place can be relative. You can be last place with 107 losses like we had this year. You can be last place with maybe 95 losses and not so far down the ladder.
Right.
For the Orioles, like I say, it's just going to be based off of how well they develop their players. Moving forward, they're going to have to look towards their future, which isn't too far away, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure how much worse it can get after this season. So I definitely expect them to have a much better season last year, and I don't know how much worse their record can be, but yeah, if they can develop their prospects, they, like we said, they have the best farm system. They have a lot of guys that can come up, a lot of guys on the team now that they can develop. So I think the future's pretty bright. So I think we have something to look forward to, definitely in Baltimore.
If everyone stays healthy,
Yeah.
you never know with other teams. The Yankees are always injured beyond belief, and things happen during a season. You never know.
Yep. All right, we don't hold you any longer. Hey, before Ryan and I head out, Brian, we just want to thank you so much for your time and coming on with us. And I have to announce it while we're on here. We had to do it. Ryan and I usually, we're starting this process now. Just this new podcast. So we're about a year now. We want to actually get into bringing more guests on and stuff. I just want to tell you now, Ryan and I have paired up and teamed up since you come on with us today. We want to provide you with 2 baseball tickets to an Orioles game next year.
Oh,
any game of your choice, you tell us, and we got you. For you and one of your family members to take down. So we definitely wanted that as a little thank you from him and I. So we just want to do that for you. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And we can't.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And go O's, right, Ryan?
I'd be happy to come back on again anytime.
Yeah, that's right. Well, definitely. You and I will stay in touch and about that ball game, and you tell us and that's of your choice. So,
all right, thank you so much.
All right, Double B, we'll be talking to you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Yeah, bye-bye.